The new Proton X70 has been the talk of the town for quite some time now. Ask anyone, they'll either love it or hate it, but everybody will have an opinion on Proton's very first SUV.
Yep, so far it's making headways to gain back the public's confidence on the brand. But you know, there's always going to be people who think that this is an untried and untested vehicle.
You know, with it being from China and whatnot, and that it's not a global car.
So, to put all that to rest, we're comparing it against two of its strongest rivals.
So the big question is, how will the Proton X70 stand against a true global car? And for today, the benchmark is the Honda CR-V. It is the market leader in Malaysia's C-segment SUV class, and as suggested in our previous episode, it is the best family SUV in its class.
So that is going to be the real acid test for the Proton X70. If you put the prices aside, is it actually any better than the Proton, or is it about the same? Can this really be the very first world-class Proton?
Well, if you're someone like me, a real Chinaman who cannot put price out of the picture, you'll want to know if the X70 is capable of standing against its similarly priced rivals. For that, I have chosen the Subaru XV. For that price range, this is the one I would actually spend my own money on, but I have a feeling the X70 might change my mind on that.
Here we go. The Proton X70 against the best in class, against our top pick in its price range. This is driven, powered by Petronas Primax. Cue the music.
The Proton X70 is represented here in its top spec premium version, complete with all the bells and whistles. This includes the full suite of active safety features which were previously unheard of in this price range. And still, it's the most affordable choice here by a fair margin, which in a way is to be expected from the Malaysian national car maker.
The XV, also in premium form, is a little bit more expensive, but it does have a few unique features over the rest here, such as all-wheel drive. Also, being a Subaru, it has a rare brand image that attracts both traditionalists and driving enthusiasts.
In terms of brand desirability, there's no beating Honda's mainstream appeal. But is that alone enough to justify the range-topping CR-V's full 40,000 premium over the Proton? That's exactly what we will find out.
It's no secret the X70 was based on the Geely Boyer, so it wasn't designed from the ground up to be a Proton. But I still think it's a fine, handsome-looking SUV, plus I think it looks convincing enough as an original product here in Malaysia. At least it's not one of those nasty Chinese copycat cars, you know? And round the back, it's a genuinely good-looking SUV, especially with the big 19-inch wheels, the side window kink, and these high-mounted slim LED tail lamps. And you know me, I'm a sucker for nicely integrated twin tailpipes. This, I like.
The CR-V is now a common sight and is getting a little bit anonymous. To me, it looks okay, but this chrome bit over here probably should be a bit less. Now at the back, I'm not really a fan of these L-shaped taillights and these two sharp creases you see over here, but they do make the CR-V look taller and wider, which is a good thing. Although the X70 is actually a bit taller than the CR-V.
I'm sure you can tell that the XV looks the smallest here, and it's over 50mm shorter than the Proton. But agree with me that it's by far the coolest looking one of the bunch here. It's more crossover than it is SUV, which to me is a good thing. I like the whole jacked up hatchback look, and all this plastic cladding that go around the car help make it a little bit more rugged. To me, a car is essentially a reflection of the person behind the wheel, and the XV is actually less father of two and more, say, swag. Sort of like a Hafri Shah on a budget.
Onto the interior, well, where do I start? The Proton X70 serves up superb first impressions, from the solid feel of the doors closing, to the tactile feedback of all the buttons here, to the soft touch plastics all across the dashboard, and of course the super smooth Napa leather upholstery. You would swear that this is a premium car. And in case you're wondering, yes, the signal stock is still on the left side. Well, at least they're being consistent. The perceived build quality in here really makes the CR-V feel cheap inside. The XV comes a little bit closer, but in terms of cabin feel, this is the best one here by far. Well, after 30 years of hearing it's a Proton, what do you expect? Now this changes everything. If this sets the bar of what's to come from Protons in the near future, it's looking good. Really good.
We are not saying that the CR-V has a bad interior. It doesn't. It's far from it, in fact. The wood trim, yes, looks very 90s, and the plastic trim is a grade or two lower than the other two cars, but it has a very good SUV interior. And what do you look for in an SUV interior? You look for something that's practical, right? And this shouts practical. Now the gear lever is up here, so you have more space at the bottom. You have cubby holes, cup holders, and there's even space to fit an entire handbag. The only thing in the X70 that might suggest that it's an SUV are the two cosmetic grab handles, which you'll never use.
As for the XV, it doesn't even pretend to be an SUV. I mean, the whole car is basically lifted off the Impreza hatch, which is what this car is based on anyway. What I really like is the fact that they put this nifty screen up top, which gives you all the basic off-road information, plus this god-awful screen down here. But really beyond that, it is a fantastically built cabin, and I love it for that. The dash oozes quality, and this orange contrast stitching really helps the design pop just a little bit more. Now, if you're not a fan of orange stitching, I'm sorry, it doesn't change no matter what exterior color you choose, so there's a little fair warning for you. Now, I know if I don't mention this, some of you will. It's that this dashboard looks a little bit like that of the Proton Iris, but I honestly really don't mind it at all.
Onto cabin space, the X70 has a strong showing here too. It's not the most spacious car in this group, well, no surprises which one is obviously. But by now I think Protons are known to be a little bit compromised in the rear legroom department. Well, not this one though. Space in the back here is more than fine, even if you're especially tall. There's more headroom in here compared to the Honda CR-V, even with the panoramic sunroof, which is very impressive. On top of all that, you've also got these Boss seat controls, just in case you need more space. There's also the standard air cleaner system on all models. The only thing that I don't like is that you can't recline the rear seat, which is, for an SUV, kinda lame.
Now the CR-V is still king of rear legroom, just like any other Honda. But what makes it more special is that this CR-V actually has the shortest wheelbase among all the cars here. And this is where Honda's packaging genius really shines. And it also has the widest, most comfortable bench here. And this is a big win for Honda.
Now, I know it would make sense to think that the XV, being the smallest car of the lot here, would have the smallest amount of space on the inside, but in reality, the difference really isn't all that much, because in the X70, you get just about an extra inch of legroom space, whereas the CR-V, you get about 2 inches more. So, no biggie. What I really don't get though is that it's the only car here that doesn't have aircon vents, rear aircon vents, and USB power ports. I mean, come on, why? Next, the boot. The Proton has 512 litres of space, which is very decent for the class. In fact, it's only 10 litres less than the Honda, and in terms of maximum width, the X70 is a little bit wider. As for actual usable space, however, the CR-V has a deeper load bay, plus a much higher clearance up to the tonneau cover. Even if you load it up to the ceiling, the CR-V still has a clear height advantage. Fold the rear seats down, and again it's the Honda that comes out on top with the longest maximum load space.
So far, the Proton X70 has fared rather well against the other two cars here, but we knew that already, didn't we? What's more important is how it compares against the rest on the road. Starting off with the engine, the X70 has a rather modern unit, a 1.8-litre direct injected turbocharged motor making 182 horsepower and 285 Newton meters of torque. So immediately, this is the most powerful Proton engine ever. Except, it's not really a Proton engine now, is it? It was developed by Geely in China, and despite what you may have heard, it has very little to do with any of the latest Volvo engine technologies. Still, the engine has impressive numbers, comparing favorably against the Honda's 1.5-litre VTEC turbo unit and, of course, the XV's 2-litre naturally aspirated but direct injected boxer unit. In a straight-up drag race, however, it's the Honda that proves to be the quickest to 100 kilometers per hour, taking just 9.6 seconds. This compares to the Proton needing 11.5 seconds, and the non-turbo Subaru is clearly the slowest here, taking 13.3 seconds. Two things hold the X70 back: its weight and transmission. It's 130 kilograms more than the Honda CR-V and almost 300 kilos more than the all-wheel drive XV. So more than anything else, it's the initial bit of acceleration that makes it feel a little bit slow as it tries to overcome the extra weight. But once it's rolling, this car can keep up with the Honda all day long, no problem. Another small drawback is the transmission. And before you go, oh no, not again, this time, it's not a punch CVT, thank God for that. The X70 runs a 6-speed torque converter automatic from Australian gearbox maker DSI, which is now owned by Geely. And by no means is it a bad gearbox. It's a little bit lazy off the line and there's a bit of a low speed whine. But beyond that, it's actually very smooth and fairly responsive for everyday driving. It also offers 3 driving modes: normal, eco and sport, each with its own unique meter cluster settings. Sport is actually pretty good. It actually makes the car feel a little bit quicker than normal, and I like it a lot actually. As for eco, it sort of feels like it disables the turbocharger completely, making the car feel super underpowered. If I were you, I would completely avoid that setting. Just keep the X70 in normal and it runs just fine.
The CR-V may have the smallest engine here, which is just 1.5, but it is set at a higher tune and it makes almost 200 horsepower, which is not bad at all for a family practical SUV. Now, just like the Proton X70, it feels more comfortable after the initial acceleration phase because of its weight and the turbo lag at lower revs. But overall, it's something that you can easily get used to, and at full throttle, you would realize how quick this 1.5 CR-V really is.
Next to the 2 turbo models, however, the naturally aspirated Subaru XV doesn't feel quite as fast in comparison. Granted, it may have the biggest engine of the bunch, but its low-end torque isn't quite as impressive. I mean, as far as naturally aspirated 2-litre engines go, so you can't really expect a very quick turn of speed with this one. However, the Lineatronics CVT, which was specifically developed in-house by Subaru themselves, is really smooth and direct. I think it's easily the best transmission in this group. Also great here is the XV's ride and handling. There's a reason why Subarus are so popular among driving enthusiasts. And while this is not the high-performance WRX or STI, the use of a low-mounted 4-cylinder boxer engine plus the symmetrical all-wheel drive system really goes beyond marketing gimmicks, because I think it genuinely is a pleasure to drive. The steering is the best here by far, and seeing as it's the lightest and smallest car, it easily makes it the most dynamically capable handler in this group. It feels just like a normal hatchback to drive, albeit a little wallowy in the corners because, you know, it's a crossover after all. But that extends to the driving position as well. In this car, you sit very low, very one with the car, which is kind of the way I like it.
The Proton X70 is the complete and polar opposite. You sit so high up in here, more like a traditional old school SUV. This gives you a very commanding view out, which a lot of people love, but if it was me, I'd prefer it if the seat would go just a little bit lower still. You can also see that the steering wheel is also slanted up like that. Again, more like an old school SUV driving position. As for the steering itself, it's to be expected, it's slow and very, very light. And you can actually adjust the weight through the system here, but doing that only adds extra weight, not any extra feel. So you can forget about the X70 having the usual Proton ride and handling finesse. And in fact, the suspension tuning here is identical to the Chinese market Geely Boyer. That's not really a bad thing though, however, because it actually feels quite good. The handling is tight, it's very well controlled, and if anything, it feels more European than Japanese. In my books, that's a positive. In a way, it's kind of sad that this car does not have the usual Proton fun handling characteristics. But you know what? In a car like this, in an SUV like this, very few people and even fewer owners will actually feel the difference. It's sad, yes, I know, but that's just the way it is.
Now the CR-V is similar to the X70. Honda realized this long time ago that mainstream buyers don't want fun cars. They want practical cars, they want safe cars, cars that can bring you from point A to point B without any issues, without any fuss. And this CR-V is a very competent, safe, practical car. And if you want something fun, well, you wouldn't be looking at practical family SUV in the first place, right? To that end, Honda has made the CR-V super soft when it comes to its suspension. Now it's really good with city driving, low speed and so on. It absorbs the bumps well. It's quite a comfortable car to be in. However, at higher speeds, it's a bit too soft for its own good. It tends to rock the passengers left and right over larger humps and so on. Overall, compared to the rest of the cars here, it feels a little bit less composed at higher speed.
Here, surprisingly, the Proton is more suited for Malaysian roads, despite not having any local tuning at all. It has a slightly firmer edge to the ride compared to the Honda, but this gives it a much more sorted, more sophisticated ride quality. And unlike the CR-V, it only gets better, more comfortable as the speeds rise. So on the highways, this is the more relaxing car to be in. Surprised? Well, you better believe it.
As good as the X70 is though, it's not the best riding vehicle here, because that award, or that honor, goes to the Subaru XV. The suspension feels very sophisticated and superb. There's no clunkiness to it, it just rolls over bumps with great ease and flair. I like that the ride is so supple as well, instead of being, you know, harsh and crashy. And let's not forget, the XV is the most dynamic car here, so you truly get the best of both worlds.
Moving on swiftly to refinement, it's again no surprise that the Honda is the loudest of the lot. On full throttle, we recorded the maximum noise level of 75 dB for the CR-V, compared to 73 dB for the XV, and just 70 dB for the Proton. The order remains the same for a steady cruise of 110 km per hour. The Honda is again the loudest at 70 dB, the XV is at 69 dB, and the Proton is the quietest of the lot at 68 dB. I gotta say though, I gotta be honest here, right? I would be completely lying if I say I was not surprised by the results. The Proton is the quietest and most refined car in this group, and by a huge margin at that. Like, wow, can you believe that? Now this is really something that you have to try it out yourself. Here, hearing really is believing.
SUVs have a reputation of being fuel guzzlers, so choosing an efficient family vehicle is of course crucial. We tested these SUVs with Petronas Premax, the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Motorsport team's winning formula, which has just been proven once again for the 5th time in a row. Designed to deliver on track and on the road, this is truly advanced Formula 1 engineering available at the nearest Petronas station. Being the heaviest by far, the Proton X70 used up the most fuel, averaging 10.2 km per litre through our real-world test cycle. Second is the Honda CR-V with 11.4 km per litre, while the significantly lighter Subaru XV, despite its all-wheel drive system, came up tops with 11.6 km per litre.
Okay, as the Proton X70 is clearly the star of this episode, I'm going to let both Harv and Matt take a swipe at it. And after that, I'll go through both their cars to see what I like or don't like about them. Take it away, fellas.
I'll go first. It's the only one here with a sunroof, but we're in Malaysia, it's sunny all the time. What do you need a sunroof for? It's like wearing a nice, expensive jacket on a hot sunny day just to look cool, you know what I mean? Yeah, but at the end of the day, I'm glad Proton did it because I know a lot of Malaysians would appreciate having a sunroof, so there you go. But personally, I would rather Proton shave a few thousand ringgit off the price list just to make this car a little bit cheaper. If you look closely enough, the instrument panel is actually not perfectly aligned with the steering wheel. It's actually situated a little bit to the right, and this is common for left to right-hand drive conversions. It's not a bad thing, it's just that when you notice it, you cannot unsee it. Also, the controls for this digital instrument cluster can be a bit of a learning curve. You see this audio switch over here? Well, first you gotta press the tip on the left stop, and then this becomes the navigational tool for you to gain access to all the in-menu systems. But if you're not fast enough, it resets itself, so you gotta start all over again. So yeah. On the bright side, the X70 does come with a few standout features. For example, there's a door opening warning system, which alerts you if there's oncoming traffic, which can be a really good thing considering the amount of kapchais we have on Malaysian streets and whatnot. There's also a really handy USB port right behind the rear view mirror. That's actually for your dash cam, so you don't have wires dangling all over the cabin, not so much of a mess. So yeah, that's nice. And then there's a Proton Link app. Here you can check fuel level, oil pressure level, as well as control a few basic car functions remotely. How cool is that?
Now I'd like to start with the good stuff first. First of all, I really love music and I appreciate the fact that Proton has put a Kenwood subwoofer in this car. Now this car definitely sounds the best here. Now the car also has a very cool voice command feature, which I think is the best that I've tried on the car. Better yet, it even understands Malaysian English. So check this out. Hi Proton, please take me home. Cool, huh? The other thing I like is the 360-degree cam. Not only it gives you a good bird's eye view of everything, it can also let you do this. Check it out. How cool is that? Now on to the things that I don't really like. In this case, I feel that the car is a bit too smart for you, if there's such a thing. For example,
Sport mode is on. Economy mode is on.
it's a bit unnecessary because I press the buttons, so I know, but thankfully you can turn them off. Now on to the last part. Proton has made some efforts in trying to disguise the car's Chinese origins. For example, the speaker covers. Originally in the Geely, they featured a design that is inspired by traditional Chinese designs, and with the Proton, it's been replaced with something called the Infinite Weave, which is said to be inspired by Malaysian craftsmanship. The thing is, they did not catch all of them, so some designs are still Geely inspired in this car.
Alright, now it's my turn. The Subaru XV, despite being more expensive than the Proton, does not have the eyesight active safety features. Come on Subaru, get on with the program. And do it soon please. Now, I know Subaru is particularly proud of its unique flat 4 boxer engine layout, but does the engine bay have to look this messy with cables running around everywhere? I mean, just compare it against the Proton's fully covered engine bay and you'll get what I'm complaining about. And this could very well be the absolute worst head unit on sale in Malaysia today. The screen is so dim and so reflective that when the sun is out, you can't actually see anything. During the day, it's practically useless. One thing I do like though is the contrast stitching on the dashboard. It makes the whole dashboard look like it's fully covered in leather, which is a nice touch. I mean, it's not actually leather, but it does look the part, so that's good enough. As for the CR-V, I have to admit that its Honda sensing system is more comprehensive than Proton's own ADAS. This has full active lane keep assist system instead of just a warning buzzer on the Proton. This also adds on a low speed follow to its adaptive cruise control, and that can be very useful in KL traffic.
Okay, with all that said and done, it's time to answer the all-important question. Just how good is the Proton X70?
And the answer is very, very good, extremely good. I think everything considered, this is the best car here, period.
But it's not the best in everything. The Honda CR-V is still the quickest, the most practical and the most fuel efficient here.
Yeah, same goes for the XV. I mean, it's clearly the best looking one here. It's the most comfortable and it handles the best.
Come on boys, if you're just picking out the best bits of your car, my car has such a good interior, it makes yours feel like a toy inside. And it's so much quieter and so much bigger than your small little thing.
Whoa, 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 you want to get all personal now? Come on, man.
It kind of is personal though. I mean, that's actually my car. I mean, it's from my dad, but you know what I mean.
Hey, relax, relax. Now the million-dollar question is, would you still buy the Proton even if it didn't have the price advantage?
Definitely, without a doubt, definitely. Like I said, it's the best car here even without the price advantage. It is that good. Now what about you guys then? Would you still buy your cars having driven the X70?
Well, I still think that the XV is a fantastic family car. Compared to its natural rivals like the Mazda CX-3 and Honda HR-V, I'll still pick this, easy.
And to me personally, the Honda CR-V is still the best family SUV in its segment. Just like what we said in our previous episode.
It's not really answering the question though. Would you still buy those cars instead of the Proton at that price?
Yeah, no, you're right. I'll buy the Proton.
Yeah, no-brainer, Proton.
Yes, there you go everybody, the new Proton X70, the first world-class Proton. Finally, we can all agree on something. And with that, we've come to the end of this episode of Driven, powered by Petronas Primex. Thank you for watching.
And we'll see you in the next one.